Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive about this book called The Art of Laziness.
Okay.
Now, that title alone, pretty intriguing, right?
It is, yeah. Definitely goes against, the usual productivity, hustle culture, all that.
Exactly. So we're going to unpack this, see what wisdom we can find hidden in this kind of contradictory title.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you're digging this topic so far, don't forget to check out the episode description. Got a link to the book itself and some other resources you might find helpful.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll also we'll be pulling out some key takeaways and, tips you can actually use, because that's what really matters, right?
Absolutely. Okay, so first impressions. What's the vibe you're getting from all this material? Is it really about just, embracing being lazy? Or is there something more to it?
From what I've seen, it's not about, glorifying laziness, in the traditional sense. It's more about, I think, reframing how we think about laziness and maybe using it as, a tool for living more intentionally.
Okay, I like that. Intentional living, that sounds a lot more, purposeful.
Yeah.
Than just being a couch potato.
Exactly, yeah. The sources all seem to say that the book, it kind of pushes you to look at your relationship with work, with productivity, and to think more strategically about how you use your time and energy.
And on Goodreads, it's got a decent rating, 3.92, so clearly it's hitting home with people.
Yeah.
Some reviews even mentioned it helped them, escape the chaos of multitasking and really focus on their goals.
Yeah, that fits with that whole intentional living thing we were talking about, right? It's about choosing what to focus on, not just reacting to whatever comes up.
There was this one quote from a YouTube video that really stuck with me. It said, "Someday you'll open your eyes to find the time has run out for pursuing your dreams. Do it today."
Wow.
That doesn't sound very lazy, does it?
No, not at all. It's like a call to action, right? To actually live a meaningful life. And that seems to be a big theme running through all of these sources.
So I'm thinking, if someone's feeling stuck, overwhelmed or just uninspired, this book might offer a different perspective on how to break out of those patterns and create a life they actually enjoy.
I think the whole premise, from what I'm getting, is that laziness can be like a sign, a nudge from, inside yourself, telling you something's off.
That's fascinating. So instead of seeing it as this bad thing, a flaw in your character, you can see it as a chance to learn and grow.
Exactly, yeah. And by figuring out why you're procrastinating or why you lack motivation, you can start making better choices about how you spend your time and energy.
One of the sources mentioned that the book actually says that laziness is just like a natural human thing. It's how our brains try to save energy.
Yes, and that's important to remember. We're not supposed to be on all the time, constantly productive. We need rest, We need to recharge to do our best work.
So maybe this art of laziness isn't about avoiding work altogether, but about finding a pace you can keep up with, being productive without burning yourself out. Right?
Yeah, a good way to put it. It's about finding that balance between effort and ease, action and rest.
I'm already starting to rethink my whole view on laziness. Maybe it's not the enemy I thought it was.
It's a real shift in perspective, right? And that's what makes this book so interesting. It makes you question things you thought you knew.
Okay, so we've established this book isn't about becoming a professional couch potato. It's about being more intentional, more strategic, with your time and energy.
Right, but how do you actually do that? That's where the art comes in, I guess. From what I've seen, the book offers a bunch of strategies, techniques, to use that laziness to your advantage.
Okay, let's get into some of those. It seems like prioritization is a big one.
Oh, definitely. The Eisenhower Matrix pops up a lot.
Right. I remember that from one of those YouTube summaries. The idea is to focus on the stuff that's important, but not urgent, because those are the things we often neglect, but they can have the biggest impact in the long run.
Exactly. And that's what this whole strategic laziness thing starts to make sense, right? You realize you can't do everything, so you have to choose.
So it's not about being lazy in the sense of just avoiding work. It's about being smart about what you choose to put your effort into.
Exactly. And it seems like the book gives you some specific tools to actually do that.
All right, definitely curious to hear more about those tools. It sounds like this book could be a game changer for anyone who feels like they're always busy but not getting anywhere.
It really could be. Well, one technique that keeps popping up is the Pomodoro technique.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you've heard of that.
Yeah, definitely. Work in focus bursts, like 25 minutes and a short break, repeat. Classic, right? But what's the art of laziness twist on it?
What I'm seeing is the book really emphasizes customizing it, Don't be afraid to tweak those intervals. Make them longer, shorter. Adjust the break times, whatever feels right for you.
So it's not about being rigid. It's about finding what works for you, which I guess is like strategic laziness applied to the technique itself.
Exactly, yeah. And the book also talks about, figuring out when you're most productive. Like, what time of day do you feel most alert, most focused?
One of those PDF summaries even suggested like experimenting with different wake-up times to see what makes you most efficient. It's kind of like hacking your own biology for productivity.
It is. It is. It's like the book encourages you to experiment on yourself, which I think is cool. It's like, hey, we're not all the same. We all have our own rhythms.
Definitely. Speaking of which, gotta confess, I'm a huge multitasker.
Oh, really? The book is not a fan of multitasking. It says it's a productivity killer.
Yeah, I've heard that before, but I always thought, maybe I'm the exception. What's the logic behind that?
From what I understand, it's all about how your brain has to keep switching gears,
Yeah.
like going back and forth between tasks, and that can be mentally exhausting. You end up doing less quality work.
So it's kind of the opposite of strategic laziness then, right? Spreading your energy thin instead of focusing it.
Exactly, yeah. The book says that focusing on one thing at a time, really getting into it, that leads to better work and a more, peaceful feeling.
That's definitely something I could use, more peace amidst the chaos. So maybe I need to rethink that multitasking thing.
It might be worth it, yeah. And speaking of rethinking things, the book also brings up this 2-day rule.
2-day rule, what's that about?
It's like, never skip a habit 2 days in a row. So, if you miss a workout or don't write or skip your meditation, whatever, it's easy to let that spiral, right? But this rule helps you get back on track fast.
Okay, I like that. It's like a safety net, Keeps those little slip-ups from turning into a big derailment.
Exactly. It's about being kind to yourself, but also staying consistent.
Now, what about those really big, daunting tasks, the ones we tend to put off?
Ah, yes. The book is all about tackling the hardest task first.
Eat the frog. Right.
That's the one. And it talks about the mental energy you free up by doing that. You get it out of the way early, no more procrastinating.
It's like clearing a hurdle, and then the rest of your day feels easier.
Exactly. You build momentum, you're more likely to actually get stuff done.
Sounds good in theory. What about the smaller tasks, though? The ones that pile up?
Well, for those, the book suggests the 5-minute rule.
Okay, what's that?
If you can do it in 5 minutes or less, just do it right away.
Ooh, I like that. Get those little things off your plate.
Yeah, it clears your mind, prevents that feeling of being overwhelmed.
So it's like being strategically lazy, but with the small stuff.
I like that, yeah. Now, beyond these specific techniques, the book also talks about your environment.
Oh yeah, where you work definitely affects how you work.
Totally. And it emphasizes both physical and digital decluttering.
Makes sense.
A clean desk, less clutter, turning off those notifications.
So it's like strategic laziness applied to your surroundings, setting things up to help you, not distract you.
Precisely. It even talks about being mindful of the information you consume.
What do you mean by that?
Like the books you read, podcasts you listen to, even social media. Be intentional about what you're taking in.
Like a mental diet, right?
Exactly, yeah. And speaking of well-being, the book also talks about rest and recovery. It's not a luxury, it's essential for being productive. You got to recharge to be your boss.
One source mentioned active rest, activities that help you recharge without completely disconnecting.
Oh yeah, that could be things like hobbies, spending time in nature, mindfulness, even just taking a walk without your phone.
So it's like giving your mind a break, but in a way that's still beneficial.
And again, it's about finding what works for you.
What makes you feel refreshed and energized?
Now, another big theme is developing a growth mindset.
Ah, yes. Power of perspective.
Right.
Remember that quote, if you don't know what port you sail to, no wind is favorable.
Powerful stuff, yeah. And it ties into having a clear vision for your life, knowing what you want to achieve.
And the book seems to say that a growth mindset is key for dealing with the tough stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. Obstacles become opportunities.
Not failures.
Exactly.
The book also talks about, being persistent, being resilient.
It talks about this adaptable, cyclical method for solving problems, recognizing that things aren't always linear,
It's a good reminder that setbacks happen, but they don't have to stop you.
Right. It also emphasizes staying positive, being proactive, even when things are tough.
Focusing on what you can control. That's so important because it's easy to get caught up in worrying about stuff you can't change.
Absolutely. And it's not just about external success either. It's about inner peace, feeling fulfilled regardless of what's happening around you.
It's all connected, isn't it? Your thoughts, your actions, your results. It's like a positive feedback loop.
Definitely. Now, one last thing before we wrap up.
Okay.
The idea of memento mori.
Remember that you will die. Seems a bit intense for a book about productivity.
It is, but it's not about being morbid. It's about using that awareness of your mortality as motivation to live a life that matters.
One source mentioned a memento mori calendar, where each dot is a month in an average lifespan. Pretty sobering visual, right?
It is, yeah. But the book suggests that facing that reality can actually be freeing, not something to be afraid of.
It's about realizing that time is precious, making the most of every day.
Please.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. I'm seeing laziness in a whole new light. And for those just tuning in now, hey, don't forget, episode description's got that link to buy the book and some other cool resources too.
Definitely. All right, so big picture now. What are the main takeaways here? What do we want our listeners to walk away with?
I think for me, the most important thing is that idea of reframing. We tend to see laziness as this, like, enemy, right? But maybe it's not.
Yeah, it's more like a signal, right? A chance to pause and really think about what matters. Are you on the right track? Are you pushing yourself too hard?
And that brings us to strategic laziness, right?
Right.
Which we've talked about a lot. It's about being intentional, choosing what to do, and maybe even more importantly, what not to do.
Exactly. We can't do it all. Sometimes saying no is the most productive thing you can do. Focus on that 20% that gets you 80% of the results. Let go of the rest.
We've also learned some pretty cool techniques to help with that. Pomodoro technique, the 2-day rule, tackling the hard stuff first, the 5-minute rule. They're like tools to help you put all this into practice.
Exactly. And remember, they're tools, not rules, right? The book encourages you to find what works best for you.
Experiment a bit, figure out your own style.
Exactly. And that includes your environment too, right? Both physical and digital. The book really emphasizes creating a space that supports your goals.
Less clutter, fewer distractions, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And even being mindful of the information you're taking in, like we talked about.
It's all about taking control, setting yourself up for success.
And let's not forget about rest. Rest and recovery are so important.
It's not a luxury, it's a necessity.
We're not machines. We need to recharge to do our best work.
It's easy to forget with everyone always on.
But the book reminds us that rest can actually boost your creativity, help you come back with fresh ideas.
It's all about balance, isn't it? Effort and ease, action and rest. And while we're figuring all this out, that growth mindset is key, like we talked about.
Yeah, remember Seneca's quote, "If you don't know what port you sail to, no wind is favorable." You got to have that vision, that direction to weather the storms.
And those setbacks, they're just course corrections, part of the journey.
The book also talks about staying positive, focusing on what you can control, even when things get tough.
It's a good reminder. Sometimes we spend too much energy worrying about stuff we can't change.
Exactly. And it's not just about reaching some external goal. It's about that inner peace, too, feeling good about yourself no matter what.
And then there's memento mori, a bit of a heavy concept, remembering that you're going to die.
But the book frames it in a way that's actually motivating. It's like, okay, time is precious. Let's make it count.
Yeah, let's make choices that align with our values, live each day with purpose.
Exactly. So this whole art of laziness thing, it's really about being mindful, intentional, strategic with your time and energy.
So you can create a life that's both, productive and fulfilling.
Yeah, it's like using laziness to your advantage, unlocking your potential.
If you're digging this, definitely check out the episode description for that link to buy the book. And hey, if you have other books you think we should deep dive into, let us know in the comments.
And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes. We've got some great stuff coming up.
And to all of you listening, thanks for taking this deep dive with us. We hope you learned some cool stuff, got some inspiration. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.